for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that the world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation.
You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world. What is the India story? It's the story of the world's biggest democracy.
We are developing the road infrastructure. In the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have now entered the growth phase. And I believe that the growth rate in India is going to be exponential.
Two narratives of Indian story which need to be brought center stage.
Every week, the India story will bring the most incisive analysis, the most authoritative voices.
India will be a significant pole in the universe of AI going forward.
India is walking tall, India's stature is different, India's voice is being heard.
And the biggest newsmaker.
Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. For the first time in 7 weeks, the agreed to humanitarian pause has brought some relief to the people in the Gaza Strip. The horrific carnage unleashed by a campaign of relentless bombings and a ground offensive is temporarily halted. Now, Israelis captured by Hamas in the attack that took place on the 7th of October are being exchanged for Palestinian prisoners who've been languishing in Israeli prisons. But what does this mean to the larger trajectory of the war? Because the Israelis are clear. The humanitarian pause is only to exchange the Israeli hostages, and once this period of the humanitarian pause expires, Tel Aviv has said that it has its plans ready for the next stage of the war. Our next report gets you more details. This was the moment that everyone had been waiting for, the first significant breakthrough in this war. As dusk began to fall on the 24th of November, the Israeli captives, including elderly women and children, were handed over by Hamas to the representatives of the Red Cross. A convoy of buses and ambulances rode out of the Gaza Strip, and eventually, the Israeli captives were brought back into Israel. The doctors who examined the released Israeli captives said that they are in good health.
About half an hour ago, I was thrilled to be the one to receive 4 children, 3 mothers, and a grandmother to the best and most caring hands here at Schneider Children's Medical Center of Israel. Their physical condition is good, and they're currently undergoing medical and emotional assessment by the medical and psychological team here at Schneider's.
Simultaneously, at the Israeli-operated Offa prison in occupied West Bank, the Palestinian women and children who'd been languishing in Israeli prisons were set free as part of the deal. As buses filled with the released Palestinians rolled back into places like Ramallah, there were scenes of cheering and celebration. 24-year-old Mara Bakir, who had been arrested when she was just 16 years old and has spent 8 long years in an Israeli prison, was one of the first Palestinians to be set free.
It passed. There were difficult times, especially since I was young at the beginning, where I needed to be among my parents and with my mother. But thank God, there were people inside to take care of me among the prisoners, who looked after me, and some were like a mother to me.
People often think that wars are about scheming, heartless generals and ambitious, wily and greedy politicians. But wars are actually about civilians, about families that get torn apart, about children who get orphaned. This video from the Schneider Medical Center in Israel will give you a glimpse of a family that was torn apart but was eventually reunited due to this humanitarian deal. Elsewhere in Eilat, the Moshe family were waiting to meet with the 72-year-old Adina Moshe, who had also been set free.
We really want to get there and hug her. It's an unexplained longing for a grandmother that we're used to seeing every day. We lived together since the grandchildren were born, since the eldest, Eris, was born. She's visiting us every day. She's a very active grandmother. She's bringing us food on a daily basis, sitting with us. She's the part of education of children. She's with us all the time, and suddenly, one bright morning, she disappeared. It's been 50 days that we haven't seen her.
These scenes of families reuniting is a far cry from what is happening even now in the battle zone. In Khan Yunis, the Hani al-Najjar returned back to her home, only to find that it had been bombed to rubble by the Israelis. Along with her other surviving family members, she went about salvaging anything that could be used. Clothes, cutlery, children's toys, everything else was completely destroyed.
When they say there is a truce, we came to see our homes. We came to this, as you see, complete destruction. Every war, as you see, the house is destroyed. Every war. Till when will we suffer from destruction? Nakbas. Nearly 70 people of the family are gone, as well our neighbors and our beloved ones, a lot of loved ones. They were all martyred under the rubble of this house.
Despite the 4-day military pause, the Gaza Strip is in the midst of a humanitarian catastrophe. Over 15,000 Palestinians being killed, and 70% of all casualties are of women and children. The death toll of the Palestinian children alone has crossed the 6,000 mark. The health infrastructure of the Gaza Strip has been destroyed, and northern Gaza has been turned into a desolation. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who along with the Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo visited the Rafah border crossing, was categorical. The military pause, he said, is good, but what is needed is a permanent ceasefire.
This ceasefire is a good step forward, but it's not enough. I think that the large majority of the international community agreed that we need a permanent ceasefire, humanitarian ceasefire. I think that the momentum has come for the international community, especially for the European Union and member states, to recognize the state of Palestine. And I think it would be important if many member states of the European Union we do it all together. But if this is not the case, of course, Spain will take their own decisions.
In the immediate aftermath of the 7th of October attacks, Israel enjoyed unequivocal support and solidarity from the international community. But the relentless campaign of bombings and a crippling ground offensive, resulting in a death toll that has gone up by the hour, has meant that even the most staunchest allies of Israel are now calling for an immediate end to the bloodshed. A child is a child. Children everywhere must be protected at all times and must never come under attack. This is a statement issued by the UNICEF, an agency of the United Nations working in over 190 countries, saving children's lives, defending their rights, and helping them fulfill their potential. On the 7th of October, when hundreds of Hamas fighters infiltrated into southern Israel and carried out their attack, the disturbing details that emerged were of children and also of some elderly getting killed and taken hostage. The world then sympathized with the plight of the Israeli kids, condemned Hamas's violence and also demanded justice and stood in solidarity with Israel. But Israel's response has been that of daily bombings that has snuffed out entire families and their bloodlines, including children. In the last 7 weeks of the Israel-Palestine conflict, the Gaza Strip has borne witness to a devastating toll on its children, caused by the relentless campaign of Israeli bombings. One shudders to even imagine the total casualties of this war, not to mention the profound changes the young, impressionable minds would have gone through. The trauma, shock, and the sheer horror of what the children have been exposed to will without a doubt alter their lives forever.
The 20th of November is celebrated annually as World Children's Day. A global initiative, the day is used to promote children's rights, safety, education, health, and happiness. This year, it came amid the raging Israel-Palestine conflict. According to UNICEF, children make up 47% of Gaza's 2.3 million population. Since the 7th of October, reportedly over 5,500 children have been killed in daily Israeli bombings. That is, one Palestinian child is killed every 10 minutes, or 1 out of every 200 children in the Gaza Strip has been killed. Heart-wrenching stories such as that of 33-year-old Fattah has tragically been a constant ever since the bombings began.
They destroyed an entire neighborhood, and no less than 50 martyrs were recovered from the rubble. I walked over 50 bodies looking for my son. My son, whom I was happy to see grow by every centimeter, they robbed him from me. I was looking for body parts for my son. In the end, my other younger son told me, "Mom, here's Uday." I could only identify him by his belt. He was wearing all black. I couldn't identify him at first because of the fire and the dust.
At least an additional 1,800 children are missing under the rubble, most of them presumed dead. A further 9,000 children have been injured, many of them with life-changing consequences. One shudders to imagine the trauma of multiple wars they have lived through. A month into the war, on the 6th of November, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres likened the bombarded Gaza Strip to a graveyard for children and urged for an immediate ceasefire.
Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children. Hundreds of girls and boys are reportedly being killed or injured every day. The way forward is clear. A humanitarian ceasefire now. All parties respecting all their obligations under international humanitarian law now. This means the unconditional release of the hostages in Gaza now. Nothing can justify the deliberate torture, killing, injuring, and kidnapping of civilians. The protection of civilians must be paramount. I'm deeply concerned about clear violations of international humanitarian law that we are witnessing. Let me be clear. No party to an armed conflict is above international humanitarian law.
Apart from the daily attacks, Israel's total blockade on Gaza meant no food or water could enter Gaza territory. Gazans, especially children, found themselves at risk of dehydration and malnourishment, even though they were prioritized by their families for whatever little supplies available to them. For those lucky enough to survive these indiscriminate attacks, learning to survive without their family members could be a lifelong struggle. Reportedly, many more children have been killed in Gaza every day compared with Ukraine, Afghanistan, Iraq, and other conflict zones. Not that any reminder is needed, but a child, whether an Israeli or Palestinian, is a child and must be protected.
Tehran has unveiled an upgraded version of its hypersonic missile on the 19th of November. The Iranian show of strength has come on the heels of the heightened US military presence in the region and puts US's chief ally Israel, Iran's regional arch-enemy, well within its range. Now, Tehran claims that the new missile, Fattah-II, is capable of evading the air defense systems with its hypersonic maneuvers, which is, of course, being interpreted as a whale jibe at the rival Israel and also its many air defense systems. So how good is this new missile by Iran? Our next report gets you the details.
Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, visited a university in Tehran run by the Aerospace Division of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps on the 19th of November. An array of arms was on display which included the upgraded version of the Fattah hypersonic missile named Fattah-II. In June this year, Tehran had unveiled its first indigenously made hypersonic ballistic missile called Fattah, thereby joining a small club of countries including China and Russia. This exclusive club boasts of an arsenal with weapons capable of traveling long distances with strong maneuverability. Fattah-II missile is a hypersonic glide vehicle or HGV, a projectile that glides to its target after the initial launch. What makes it far more destructive is substantially more maneuverability, compared to a ballistic warhead traveling in a more predictable arc pattern. Fattah-II is capable of moving at a speed of up to Mach 15, which is equivalent to 5.1 kilometers per second. It has a range of 1400 kilometers. In June, the IRGC officials had said they plan to improve the range of hypersonic to 2000 kilometers, which would effectively bring Israel, Iran's arch-enemy, well within its range. Apart from the Fattah-II missile, among the array of weapons on display was an Iranian-made Gaza drone, a new version of the Shahid series of unmanned aerial vehicles, and a few missile defense systems. Condemning Israel and its Western allies for their war on the Gaza Strip, Ayatollah Khamenei appealed to the Muslim states to cut off ties with Israel.
Some Muslim governments sometimes condemn the bombings in assemblies and statements and the like. Some don't even do that. This condemnation is not enough. They should cut off this vital artery of the Zionist regime. They should not allow oil, energy, goods, and the like to enter the Zionist regime. They should limit their political relations with the Zionist regime, at least for a limited period of time. Let's say 1 year or less or even more. Cut off. If they want these crimes to stop, this tragedy to stop and end, this is their duty.
Khamenei's ire was directed not only towards Israel, but its Western allies as well. Calling the Zionist regime a symbol of racism, he claimed that the Western backing for the nearly 2 months-long bombing of the enclave amounts to Western leaders' indulgence in racism. Since the escalation of conflict between Israel and Palestine on the 7th of October, Lebanon's Hezbollah and Yemen's Houthis have engaged in cross-border fighting with Israel. Both these groups fall under the umbrella of Iran-backed resistance axis. Iran's missile arsenal is believed to be the largest and most diverse in the Middle East. US General Kenneth F. McKenzie Jr., who retired as the head of US Central Command, claimed at the beginning of this year that Iran has over 3,000 ballistic missiles of various types, with some capable of reaching Tel Aviv. Another former State Department non-proliferation official, Mark Fitzpatrick, claimed that Iran has at least 9 ballistic missiles that could successfully carry and trigger a nuclear weapon to its target. Iran's investment in the past decade in improving the precision and lethality of its weapons has proved to be a potent threat to the US and its partner military forces in the region. Now, with the unveiling of Fattah-II, that threat has become all the more credible.
Pyongyang has claimed that it successfully launched a military spy satellite into orbit late on the 21st of November. Now, Tuesday's launch was Pyongyang's third attempt at securing a military eye in the sky after earlier two failed ventures in the month of May and August earlier this year. North Korean state media has claimed that within hours of the launch, the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reviewed images of the American military bases in Guam. In an immediate fallout of the launch, South Korea partially suspended a 5-year-old military accord. In retaliation, North Korea fully suspended the deal and has also beefed up its security at the borders. Our next report gets more details.
Heralding a new era of space power, Pyongyang on Wednesday claimed to have put its first spy satellite into orbit and vowed further satellite launches and even a nuclear test next year. These launches, Pyongyang reasons, are a defense against what it calls its enemy's dangerous military maneuvers. The military spy satellite named Malgyeong-1 was launched late Tuesday on a new carrier rocket, Cholima-1. Tuesday's launch was North Korea's third attempt after two failed tries in May and August, and the first since its leader Kim Jong-un's rare trip to Russia in September. Russian President Vladimir Putin is believed to have promised to help Pyongyang build satellites. Seoul's intelligence agency also claimed that Pyongyang had received Russian assistance for its successful launch. Pyongyang is believed to have provided Moscow with the blueprint and data relevant to the first and second failed satellite launches. Russia, in turn, analyzed the data provided and gave Pyongyang the crucial feedback. Though acknowledging the launch's success, the intelligence agency cautioned that it was too early to say if the satellite was working as Pyongyang claimed. Soon after the launch, Seoul suspected, albeit partially, a 2018 military accord between the two Koreas and deployed surveillance and reconnaissance assets to its border. The South Korean defense chief called it an essential measure to defend against the nuclear-armed North's growing threats. North Korea, in turn, called the move reckless, suspended the deal in full, and said it would restore all military measures it had halted under the deal with South Korea.
From now on, our army will not be restricted by the 9.19 North-South Korea military agreement. We will withdraw the military actions that were taken to prevent military tension and conflict everywhere, including the ground, sea and air. Also, we will forward deploy more powerful armed forces and new type military equipment in the region along the military demarcation line.
About a fifth of all satellites launched belongs to the military and are used primarily for spying purposes. Though every major country has a military satellite, the US, China and Russia are perched on the top three positions, with 239, 140 and 105 military satellites respectively. North Korea's official Korean Central Television, or KCTV, said that the military spy satellite will formally start its reconnaissance mission from the 1st of December after finishing 7 to 10 days of fine-tuning process, though adding that it was already transmitting images. Successfully putting a spy satellite into orbit would improve North Korea's intelligence gathering capabilities, particularly over South Korea. Additionally, it would provide crucial data in any military conflict, enabling Pyongyang to target its enemy's position a whole lot better. The launch appears to have kicked off a space race on the Korean peninsula, with Seoul planning to launch its first spy satellite via a SpaceX rocket later this month. Will Pyongyang's military spy satellite launch prove to be a harbinger of things to come? Well, the early signs are rather ominous.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.
We are
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear it in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
A new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be